Hey, Bruce.
We're back.
We're back.
This is because of the Patreon.
That's true, yeah.
I want to make sure and say that rather than being sponsored like we were before with like NordVPN or whatever, sponsored by the Patreon. That's why we're doing the podcast. It's great.
Yeah, they're paying for us to talk, so talk we will. Yes, thank you all patron sponsors, and to anyone who's listening or watching this right now. Yeah. You're the magic. You're the cast beneath our pod.
The wind beneath our wings.
Yeah.
There goes my hero. You guys. This is going to be on YouTube too, so I think anybody can watch it.
Yeah.
I wanted to quickly talk about the stuff that we recorded for only the patrons, just
okay.
so that, we can be like, hey, we're making other content for them.
Yeah.
We did a real quick little podcast about Elden Ring, and about what would you consider that podcast about? Like Elden Ring's artistic merit, or
I think we kind of talked over what made Elden Ring more approachable and enjoyable than traditional Soulsborns.
Yeah.
Why it doesn't have that like "fuck this, I quit" moment. Instead,
I almost
it's just
did it. I was real. Oh my gosh!
What had you almost bailing out of Elden Ring?
There were a couple of times where like it pit me up against. Well, the real problem, not to get too far into this, but it was the problem was that I would beat one boss with no issue, and then the next boss, literally right after that, I would spend hours on, and it made no sense to me video game progression wise.
Oh yeah.
So like I was like hovering so dangerously close to the uninstall button. I was like, I'll do it, and I was threatening to do it on stream, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to do it. I won't do it, and I'm glad I finished because now I'm having a great time.
Okay. Yes, that is. Those games are chaos.
Yeah, that's true.
And Elden Ring, I think, especially is chaos. That's I've expressed my frustration about this before. How gamers they like to look at their trophy shelf and see all of their completions for Soulsborns.
Sure.
And they're like, yes, I've done it. That's like hunting trophies or something like that.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
Oh yeah, I've played a lot of hard games in my life, right? And I like hard games.
You do.
Soulsborns are hard, yes, but they're kind of more chaos than they are hard sometimes. Some bosses are very skill based, but depending on your build, the gear you have, just the happenstance of you just having to guess the right patterns and timing of a boss.
Yeah, that's right.
You can just whoopsie through a boss in Souls.
I've done that.
Yeah. It can happen.
Yeah.
And man, I just think back to everyone that was so smug about, well, I beat Ornstein and Smell on my second try. I'm just like, well, yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. You can also spend 8 hours there. The same player doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and Elden Ring is even more down that path of like, you could be whatever level with whatever gear, have whatever flask, whatever summons, whatever shit you bring into a boss fight. It could be a breeze, or it could take you 7 hours, and you could walk into it with the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I had one specific time where I finally figured it out. I was like, this is just RNG. Yeah. It's just like, hopefully the boss doesn't do the strong attacks at the wrong time. And at the very, very end of one of the bosses, it was Astel. He hit me with like this attack that's not undodgeable, but it's pretty close to undodgeable. And I hit him, and we killed each other at the same time. Oh. And I was like, what happens here? And apparently Ty goes to the runner. You win.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. So when I died, I came back and I had beaten him, and I was like, that feels pretty random to me. That didn't feel like I'd learned his pattern. Obviously, it took me an hour or whatever, but it felt pretty random that he killed me and I killed him, and then I got the win. So I was like, okay, all right. Like you said, it's like they got these trophy cases. I don't want to insult anybody out there, but they got these trophy cases. I beat Dark Souls in 3 hours or whatever. It's like, yeah, but also like you got all the right sequence of events to get that game.
Yeah.
Anyways. That is one of our little podcasts we did for patrons. And then we also did a Q&A. We answered what did we answer questions specifically about?
Oh, there were a pretty broad reach of them. There was ones that were like, what was your favorite news cycle to cover in our broad and far-reaching career in games journalism? Just some other stuff like what because I remember we had I think had lamented about games culture sort of taking a decline post Gamergate. So somebody's like, hey, let's bring the mood up. What has gotten better since 2013?
Yeah.
So yeah, there were a lot of very insightful questions and very fun to talk about. I think in a larger scale, Bruce, this is really fascinating because this is the first month where we've sort of really stepped up. We only it was very heavy at the end of the month. But yeah,
Oh,
we doubled our production with Inside Games.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we did a bunch of extra content for the patrons. That was weird. Hopefully that didn't bang too loud in the mics. But yeah, we did some patron exclusive content, which I learned a lot about Vimeo. God damn that service, but I learned a lot about it. Learning more about Discord too and permissions. This is what it's doing what I'd hoped it would do, which is that it's pushing me into new territories and having me learn new things. But it's been interesting trying to fit it in.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And we want to say thank you again for motivating us to get there with your actual monetary support, because I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the things, whether or not they were Patreon exclusive or whatever, or the extra episodes. We wouldn't have done them if it weren't for the Patreon. So as long as that keeps going, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
I know I'm enjoying it. It's taking up a lot of our spare time, but just still enjoying it. And it's like one of those things where every time we record an episode with Charlotte and we're all remote, I'm always like, man, I want to be so badly want to be in the same room. So badly. I want us all to be there, just back like we were doing it before. So.
It's like a diet soda. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
It hits almost right, and then the aftertaste is just a little...
There's a little bit of a delay.
Weird.
Yeah, there's that Discord delay, but it's just, we'll get there. So I think that's next on our list is probably a set.
Yeah.
And a way for us to all get out there. That's got to be the next goal in our Patreon, I think, is a way for us to actually travel to a place and do that. Because all of us are in different parts of Los Angeles, and there's a lot of driving and a lot of traffic, and et cetera, et cetera. So we just have to get to that spot.
Yeah. We're not collecting in one office anymore, where it used to be just like if somebody had 30 free minutes, you could just grab them and shoot something.
It's true.
Yeah, now we all have other jobs and other things we do all day. Not to mention, the world's kind of waking back up. At least my world is. A lot of post-COVID stuff, which is good. No complaints. But going outside, going to dinner with people, seeing movies, it's great. But I mentally didn't account for the fact that would also take up time.
Yeah. Well, we used to account for it, and then for 2 years we didn't. For 2 years, it was just like, oh, we're going to record something. Turn on Discord. It'll take you 5 minutes to set up. And now you have to drive and park and figure out a reservation or figure out a movie ticket or whatever. It's really weird. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. Because I was thinking about exactly the same thing where I was like, this takes up a lot of time, and I'm not complaining, by the way. I love it. I love it. But also, it just takes up more time. So
yeah, I've found that I react with annoyance at all the interstitial time that you lose by doing things in the real world of like driving to a place. Yeah.
Versus the 2 years in the pandemic.
Yeah. Where everything was just like, the most time that I would lose in the process of doing something is walking from one room to another or going like if I walked around outside. But yeah, it was either nearly immediate because it happened on the internet or it didn't happen at all. So somehow in that process, I lost concept of the fact that there's like buffer time around everything you need to do.
Yeah, not to say that the pandemic's over with. By the way, not to say that at all. Obviously, we're all still trying to be safe, et cetera, but we can be in the same room and feel a little more secure about what we're doing. I mean, that's what Los Angeles is slowly opening up. I've got a question for you, though, because I remember Lawrence and I would always talk about, you're always excited about the cyberpunk future of like how no one's going to have sex or kids, how everyone's only going to, fuck robots, and also how everyone's going to do things remotely. And you just got to do that for a couple of years. Did that change your mindset? Did you not like it? Were you like, this is what I've always wanted and I wish it would stay this way forever? Where have you fallen in that? Because I know where I am. I don't know where you are, and I'm curious.
Well, I now I'm curious. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, so I have some idea of where you fell on that. But
I mean, I hated it.
Yeah,
yeah. I wanted to be out. I wanted it to be normal, but that's just me.
It didn't wear on me until like a year in.
Okay.
Or rather, I didn't appreciate how it wore on me until about a year in.
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely internalized a lot of stuff, a whole lot. I think I got really in my own head about certain things. I think I dwelled on, like, when I didn't have any new human interactions to kind of push the old ones out of the queue.
Yeah.
The old ones just sat there, and then I would just think about them. So, I would just basically go over interactions that were months old. Oh my gosh. Sorry, the monitor's turning on.
I hope it's
Wow.
So is this still
That's a lot of
recording?
It is. Let me just turn that off. Sorry, power saving kicked in and everything went insane for a second.
And also all everything changed to different monitors too.
Yeah, thanks for that, Windows. Because it like disconnects and reconnects all my monitors in sequence. All right, we're good. I still think I'm pretty well suited. I'm kind of a more introverted person in general.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think this may have happened with or without COVID to some extent, but I definitely missed working on teams.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I didn't expect that I would.
I got it. I didn't ever factor that into what I was doing. Weirdly, I don't know why I never thought of that, but pandemic exacerbated it. So like, because I was like, oh, it'll be fine because I'll work on my own, Twitch streaming. And this is in 2019 when I left, and I was like, I'll work on my own, but also I could just go see my friends whenever. I'll call them up and be like, let's hang out or whatever. So then when the pandemic hit, I was like, I can't even do that anymore. Holy shit. Like, this is really bad for my psyche. And I knew it would be. And so I got better at dealing with it probably 6 months after the pandemic started. Because the first 6 months for me were just like, I am so clearly frustrated. And that's just not the way I live my life. So it had taken away everything that I loved about the city I lived in, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I was surprised about. I was like, Los Angeles will always be great. Boy, was I wrong. The pandemic ruined it.
Yeah?
Oh my gosh.
If you're just sitting in one box, I guess one box is as good as another.
And also, where does it matter? It's like, who cares? I could have been in the middle of Ohio. By the way, no offense to Ohio, but it's like I could have been in the middle of there and just on a farm.
Well, this is why streamers move to like Texas and stuff.
Right.
You don't have to pay state income tax.
Yeah.
Cheap houses.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Especially if you're starting a family and you're just not going to go out much or do much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm more interested to hear how it affected introverts. Because I know like you are a little bit of an introvert. Autumn's very much an introvert. And Autumn and I have talked about it, but I was curious to see how you were affected.
Yeah.
By it.
I think the two biggest takeaways were just emotionally and intellectually, I got really stagnant.
Yeah.
Like there weren't a lot of thoughts to challenge me or to open up my horizons at all.
Me too. Yeah.
Got very comfortable with just cycling my brain around the same stuff. I got a little too maybe sure of myself because there wasn't anything to like check me or challenge me. And that doesn't have to be explicit, by the way. I don't necessarily mean like I barge into a room and be like, here's what I think about blank. And then somebody else is like, shut up. No, it's more just like being around different people, interpreting things in different ways. It's almost like it's like the DNA variety that I needed to not turn into like a British royal family in my head. I started to get like big noses and weird ears and stuff. It just started. I noticed that started to happen. I just got a little moldy in my brain.
Yeah.
Which does factor into the working on team things as well. Working on teams is really wonderful for a few reasons. I mean, it can be rough for an introvert for a couple of other reasons, but being able to see other people's creativity is really nice and work with that.
It's different than the way you do it. So it really helps you. It helps stimulate me and be like, oh, wow, they can do it that way. Like, I didn't even think about that, Sorry.
And even, no, absolutely. Even just the mental flexibility of, it's like a muscle that needs to be stretched, being around other people doing things in different ways.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you get a little too rigid and set in your ways if you only do your thing the one way. The other thing that definitely started to wear on me after a while, and I think everybody expresses this to some degree, is just how days would bleed together.
Oh my gosh. Ugh. The time was nothing. Time was absolutely nothing in like the dead center of that. Oh, it literally felt like nothing had happened. Mm-hmm. It was so weird.
And I feel like part of that is streaming every day is really fun, and I still love it, and I'm going to do it as long as I can, regardless of whether or not it earns money. But which is not a leading statement. But what I realized is if my day's work was to get up and then do a stream and then shut down, that wasn't very creatively fulfilling after a while. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Work is good and necessary because it makes you feel accomplished.
That's right.
It makes you feel like you've done something or you've contributed. And while I still feel like I've done something and maybe to a degree like I've contributed streaming, it's definitely like there are market forces that kind of compel you away from trying to do something interesting or weird or new
Yeah.
on stream. Yeah.
All the time.
If you do something that deviates away from just sitting in a chair and playing a video game, your viewership actually suffers weirdly.
Yeah.
No matter how much you try to brush it up. And I know, Bruce, you've done a number of produced streams.
On purpose, because it's like, I don't want to do that all the time. I'd like to try new shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So that kind of factors in too of my brain got a little cobwebby when I would just, if I put on like streams that were different, they would largely just be for me to kind of bust up the monotony of things.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, it's just like the universe is telling you to just veer back towards center and do the same thing. So then it became a question of like, well, I'm going to put in extra work
Sure.
and flex all this creativity to do something that performs worse. That kind of stings a little bit.
It hurts. I firmly believe, just so that anybody's listening, I firmly believe that every single person is creative in some way. So even if you're not in a creative field or you're not making content like we are, I still think that whatever you're doing, whether or not it's drawing or painting or you're making music or you maybe create content yourself or some sort of creative endeavor you have, doesn't matter if you're trying to sell it. If you show it to someone, let's say you show it to your friend and your friend goes, not very good. It hurts. It's like it's one of those things where you're like, shit. It depends on what you do with that, but it sucks initially when you first get that. So you're totally right about that. And it's weird to branch out and make something new and then be like, and then everyone's like, I mean, it was cool, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, like they're trying to be nice and you're like, damn it. So yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Now it's interesting because I feel like in 2022, I'm finally getting a taste of what I thought 2020 would be like. And even that's a little bit different than I was expecting. Because, I thought that I would have unlimited freedom to do whatever I wanted.
Sure.
To some degree, that is true. If I really wanted to, I could just do whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to working with others, scheduling is a bit of a challenge. Because it is just like finding whatever gaps align with everyone else's schedules.
Yeah.
And then often it feels like since I have the freedom to move things around, that's what ends up happening. I rearrange a bunch of stuff to accommodate for the one gap of availability that multiple people have to do a team project. So when I wanted to work on teams, I guess and in terms of the things that you forget, like I didn't remember about all the time that buffers around doing things in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't really account for the fact that I wouldn't have any control over when those things happen. So
sure, yeah.
Yeah, there's when it happens, there's the buffer around it, and the fact that can shift around in a given day or in a given week.
Yeah. How do you feel? So coming out of it now, have you may not have even done this yet, but have you taken stock of if your opinion has swayed one way or another? Are you still feeling like you're like, I do hope that the future turns cyberpunk and I can work remote and fuck robots? Or are you like, you know what? I actually really do appreciate, and again, I'm not trying to lead you. It's just more of just like, do you feel like, do you appreciate people more? Would you rather stay at home? Like I've seen a lot of people write, blog, tweet, whatever, that they're like, I really like working from home and I want to continue working from home because I don't want to drive. I'm not crazy about working in an office. I don't want to work with other people. I'd rather be remote. That sounds like hell to me. So that's why I'm like, I'm curious to see how you feel. You don't have to have an answer either.
Oh, no, I do. I'm just trying to put words to it. I think that the hassles of working in a physical space aren't worth it. Still, and that's like the traffic, the pollution. I think more logistically, it's frustrating how much more efficient our society can be if we just get rid of that idea. That said, though, definitely now, in ways that I never felt before, when I see like a group of people that are a work team and they like take a photo and they're all thumbs upping, I'm like, like I'm the Wolverine touching the photo there because I feel very outside of all that.
Yeah, well, we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just we are. You and I are a team.
Yeah.
But like we're a pretty small team, so it's just me and you.
Yeah.
And as our team grows, I mean, like I've worked with Chelsea and Shooklin and obviously Matt Peak recently and Charlotte. I have seen Charlotte a couple times in the last few months. I've never met Chelsea or Shooklin, they're our editors for Inside Games. Never met them. I have no idea what they're like in person. It bugs me. It's like, I'm like, damn it, I'd really love to meet someone and talk to them and like find out what they like and, you know, like have normal human conversations. But it's interesting. It's an interesting world that we have we're in, that we maybe will come out of, or maybe I think things will probably be changed forever. But I don't know if the pendulum's going to swing the other way really hard, or if we're going to, like you said, sort of be like, let's try to be more efficient about the way we work.
Well, in this particular circumstance, yeah, I started working with Chelsea and Strickland in 2019 when I kind of started doing my own thing. Had some people reach out to me for contract work, and at the time, I very intentionally didn't establish a more personal relationship because I was like so committal shy after Rooster Teeth and working or managing the Inside Gaming brand and feeling the weight of not only just the day-to-day managerial of like, oh, this person needs a new chair. It's just like there's a ton of things you have to do to make work good for people.
That's right.
But on top of that, the weight of like hoping that people didn't get laid off and feeling like had to over-deliver metrics and stuff to make sure that people's jobs were secure. So coming off of that, having zero obligations was the most intoxicating thing. Which is why going to 2020 was actually pretty good. I feel like the first 6 months was me just burning off all of the negativity I had built up.
Makes sense, yeah.
Towards being involved with the team, because it kind of put me in a bad spot, which is not the team's fault at all.
No, I get you.
That's kind of more me and knowing my own limits. But so I feel like the first part of quarantine didn't really hit because it was like going to a spa for me. I got to just sort of be alone and have no attachments and no responsibilities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but now it's a question of when it comes to that. I mean, this is discounting anybody we work with and their desires, of course. But if we wanted to put in the effort, Bruce, we could throw a Discord hangout night and get to know everyone or something like that.
What? No, that's not what I want to do.
No?
I want to get together.
You want to do it in person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I don't know where Chelsea lives. I don't know where Strickland lives. They're not in Los Angeles, right?
No. I have data on that just because they're contractors and I have to issue them tax paperwork. But yeah, they're not in this state.
I have such a visceral reaction to anyone being like, let's do a Zoom. And I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. It's like, and I know I shouldn't think that way, but I do. The first thing I think is, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm allowed to see you and you want to do a Zoom call? Like, it makes sense if you're across the country, right? I completely get that. I've been in long distance relationships. I know how those go. But if somebody in Los Angeles is like, well, we'll just do a Discord hangout. What? No, we'll just meet at a bar. Like, let's talk and hang out and like be real human beings. So, but again, that's just me. That's just my personality. It always has been, and it always will be. And it was very clear cut for me when the pandemic hit. I was like, oh my gosh, am I suffering? And I'm always doing therapy kind of on and off. And so I've been doing therapy for 15 years. And I would get to talk to my therapist about that. And I would always be like, I feel terrible. Like, I feel like total shit. And she was like, well, you know, what are you doing? Can you go out? Can you like go and sit at a park somewhere? And I was like, I can, but it reminds me of the world that I'm in. It was, and that's what I used to do. I would go to a park or I'd eat in the car or whatever, rather than eating in the house when pandemic was really bad. And it was strange because it was like, you have to be outside. It's great to get vitamin D. It was nice to see like kids playing or whatever, even during the pandemic outside. But it would always remind me. It was always such a strong reminder of where I was and what was happening, and being like, oh, like just let this fucking end. So as time went on, and we really I think probably the first major thing that I did coming out of still in the middle of the pandemic was March 2021. We got married. We got married outdoors, and it was like there was like 50 people there. You were there, and it was great. It was like I had forgotten what it was like to be with a bunch of people that I liked or loved. And it was just wild. Like I'm still going to look back and think, because I've read, again, many articles, and I know for a fact with me, there's going to be trauma for a lot of people for a lot of years about what happened during the pandemic. And I wasn't sure if introverts as a whole would be more affected or less affected. I'm sure everybody's got a different reaction, but like introverts as a whole versus extroverts as a whole, because I'm an extrovert. I love people. I get my energy from people.
Oh, gross. Sorry, I just noticed I have dribbles on my shirt.
Oh, that's all right. Whatever.
Sorry.
That doesn't. I don't think anybody even noticed. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it's barely
right
there.
I was listening. I swear. I was just being.
See, if we'd been remote, I never would have noticed that, and we wouldn't have this fun little interaction.
Yeah, this little moment would be gone. Tears in the rain, Bruce.
So I don't know. I just.
It's toothpaste because I brush my teeth.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. I was just trying to be like, what the fuck could that be? sorry.
I don't care. Yeah. So I don't know. It's introverts as a whole versus extroverts as a whole. I'm sure that there's going to be lots of studies done.
Well, I'm fascinated by this because I don't feel particularly traumatized.
That's good. That's a good thing. Yeah.
If anything, I actually feel a little overwhelmed now at the amount of social things that are going on.
I think that's pretty normal. I think I'm not going to speak for Autumn, but I feel like she's felt that she's told me those things occasionally. Where she's like, boy, oh boy, like now we got to hang out with people, and like sometimes I don't really want to do that. I was like, I get it, I understand.
So I'm curious, Bruce. When you talk about, I guess question number one.
Yes. Yeah.
You said that being in quarantine and being forced to be apart from people made you feel like shit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Would you be comfortable exploring that feeling a little bit? Because that's a very foreign feeling to me, and I'm curious what that feels like.
Yeah, I can tell you why. It was because again, as an extrovert, generally you get your energy from other people. So when you get to go to a party, or you get to go to a restaurant, or you get to go to a bar, or whatever, even a movie theater, I gather energy from that. It's fun. Some of my best memories are going to see midnight screenings of movies, or going to see Star Wars Episode 1 with 1,000 other people in a movie theater. And it probably sounds like a nightmare to people that are agoraphobic or like don't want to be with a bunch of other people watching a giant movie on opening night. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's exactly what I want all the time. And that's why it made me feel like shit, because it made me feel disconnected. It made me feel like I was getting no energy. I was getting no energy from anybody. Autumn was there, but Autumn is an introvert, so she loves to be by herself, and that's okay. But if I was like, "Hey, let's do something," she'd be like, "I just want to read," or something, and then I would be like, "Okay, well, I'll go walk around." So I would go walk around, or like I said, go to a park, drive around, just feel like I was doing something, feel like I was getting near people.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting that quarantine made you feel disconnected, because I felt disconnected my entire life.
Sure. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, like that. Was that on purpose though? Or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Man, that's a good question. I've asked myself that a lot, actually. I don't know that I ever willingly elected outside of the human condition or something like that.
Okay.
But maybe I've internalized social conflict a lot harder than I should have. But
I think everybody does. I think you are absolutely not in the minority there.
So how? I guess I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this process then.
Sure.
Because whenever I'm in a social setting, I burn significant amounts of energy just trying to be normal.
Absolutely.
Because if I don't do that, if I turn that limiter off, then I get outrageous negative feedback from everyone. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not allowed to be myself most of the time.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, this is real deep. Because that's real good stuff, Lawrence, what you just said.
Yeah.
That's also something that I have thought very long and hard about, because it's totally true. The more that you are yourself, generally, the more you might, sometimes some people will have a very negative reaction to it because they don't see you as that. They haven't seen you as yourself over and over and over. Maybe they've probably seen you as sort of a little tamped down Lawrence. But generally, if you're like going wild, then not everybody's into that, because maybe they didn't know that about you. I feel the same way. And I think probably most adults would say the same, because we have to be. We have to sort of restrict ourselves a little bit. It's society, right? That's
sure.
what we're trying to be civilized. And that's why, like, whenever somebody's wasted on the street corner and they're like yelling and, like shouting, like maybe that is who they are. but because their inhibitions have lowered, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on with this guy, right?
Okay.
And I think that's what it is. That's an extreme, but I think probably most people would agree with you that they're restricting themselves a little bit so that they can fit into a social setting or whatever else. I feel the same way, and I'm an extrovert, so I love talking and things like that. But I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to give you every opinion that I've ever had, right? Or even like off the top of my head opinions that I haven't thought about for a while. And because I've thought about this, a lot of people can be themselves with their family if you feel comfortable with your family. I'm not sure about you.
Never.
Sure, but there are people that have good relationships with either their mom or their dad.
I'm
or
so
their
envious of that.
I mean, like I have great relationships, I think, with both my mom and my dad. There are still things I won't talk about with them, but I have pretty good relationships with them. So whenever I'm speaking with my dad and we'll have a lunch or whatever, I think back to those lunches and I go, that was me. That felt good because I got to talk about who I was. And I could say things and I knew I wouldn't be judged by my dad, but that's rare. That's very rare. There might be a best friend that you have, or like I said, a sibling, something like that, or a partner that you can feel like you are yourself and you can say the things that you want to say. And even if they're not even if you haven't sat there and really come up with sources and a bunch of other bullshit, it's just what you think. And people know your intentions, you know?
It's like sanitizing every statement because people interpret things. It feels like no one is willing to give each other the benefit of the doubt. People assume the worst because of off-the-cuff comments.
Yes.
And then they hold it against those people for a long time. So it's like, it's not only you have to watch out saying the one thing that's a little off color, you'll also be reminded of it, and it'll just taint the air for like months for some reason. So I guess my question to you is, I totally get and understand that restraint is part of being an
adult.
Part of being in groups.
Yeah.
It ought to be. I celebrate that. There was a time when I was much less socially adjusted that I didn't think that. Sure. I thought any restraint was just being fake, and I'm doing everyone around me a service by being as real as I can. No, that's awful.
It turns out that's not the way that
that's
work.
really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I guess what it is for me is that the effort expended to be socially palatable is higher than I get in return.
And that's I think that's probably pretty common to introverts.
Yeah,
because you're not getting anything back. So
getting a little bit, but
very little. Versus if you're an introvert, then you get your energy from. And I don't want to put you in a box, you or anybody else. You tell me what you get. But the definitions of an introvert are they get their energy from being alone, and an extrovert gets their energy from being with other people. So that's kind of what I'm going off of. But again, I'm not trying to put you in a box, somebody listening, or you. Like you said, you're like, I do get a little energy back, but not a lot. I think that's pretty normal for an introvert to say, like, I'm expending a lot of energy to be at this social thing, and I'm getting nothing back. So it's like when you leave and you go home, you're like, woo, I am drained. Yeah, and I don't feel that way. I always say they've been talking about house parties recently because of the pandemic. It's like, now you can do a house party. Fucking, I love house parties. Like, I want to go so bad to a house parties. I love watching people get wasted in a house because for some reason people get drunk faster at houses.
I think it's because they're pouring their own drinks.
Also that's cheaper, and like people I think feel more comfortable at a house versus at a bar or whatever. And I love them. They're the best. Some of my best memories are house parties, but I'm different. I get my energy from other people. So I see what you're saying though.
Well, house parties are kind of unique because everyone does kind of agree that the barriers come down, right? Everyone's drinking.
That's why I like them. Yeah.
Everyone. Why can't it just be like? Not that it should be like that all the time. Not drinking, but just cutting people a break, man. Yeah. Somebody's gonna put their foot in their mouth. Just laugh it out. I don't know.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, there's not. I'm not. Yeah, I love having conversations with people that are just their inhibitions are gone, or they just are feeling like they want to be honest or whatever. It's great. I don't judge that shit. I mean, even if you say something I disagree with, this is not the way, by the way, just like you, this is not the way I used to be. If somebody would say something that I disagree with, I'd be like, oh my gosh, hammer down. Let's argue.
Yeah.
No, that's no fun. Just listen to their opinion, listen to why they expressed it, ask them questions about it. But don't, if you disagree, whatever. Who gives a shit? Like let them express why they think this, and it'll be more fun. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that's how that works. We're just discussing how to be an adult.
Yeah, this is
like
this is veered away from quarantine a little bit. Well, I mean, not that I want to drag it back, but I am curious.
Yeah.
Is there something you talked about the trauma that you're going to carry post quarantine? How do you foresee that changing the way you socialize?
It's a good question. I think I've thought more about interactions that I have. So before I didn't. Before I would probably, I felt pretty comfortable just, talking with people, and I had already established like cadences with people. So like when I met, I would know, I'm trying to think of like, let's say, let's just pick somebody out of the air, and I'm not a name, but like a friend. I would know that this friend, I would see them every 6 months or so, go out, have a drink. I kind of got a cadence with them. I knew how we would talk. So when we arrive, we immediately have a rapport. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I could do that for years and years and years, know this person, show up, et cetera, and we just have a great conversation, part ways, do it again in a few months. So then if 2 years goes by and I don't have that cadence with anybody, so then now I would meet up with people and say a bunch of weird shit, or really overanalyze the stuff that I was saying, and be like, oh my gosh, like what happened to the cadence? What happened to the known quantity? And they would do the same. I would talk to a lot of people that like they don't know what they're saying. Like they would be like, I forgot how to do this, and that in itself has actually become a point for me to talk about with people, because people are like, if somebody will bring it up, they'll say something weird, and then I'll see them go back on it or whatever, overanalyze it and go like, I'm really sorry. Like, I don't know. I've forgotten how to do this. I'd be like, oh, me too. It's okay. We're all here together. And that's really my philosophy generally when it comes to hanging out with people, is like, we're all feeling weird. We're all feeling like something we said was strange, or we might be getting judged. So I would always feel great about it, because I'd be like, whatever. So what? We're all in the same position. We all kind of feel awkward. Now I know not everybody feels that way, but that's the way I feel, and that's the way I've always carried myself. That said, it's gotten scarier because we don't know. We're not sure, because I've forgotten how to talk to people. I'm getting better at it, but like, it's weird. So, yeah.
It's funny you bring that up, that initial, like, haha, this is weird, right? We're interacting again. It's going to be awkward. When people say that, it's the most at home I ever feel.
Yeah.
So this introductory phase of getting back into socialization, where people are upfront about giving everyone permission to be awkward, is the most at home I've ever felt.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Some of the dinners I've gone out to have felt the most normal, because people aren't bringing in, like, I've always felt like people do establish not necessarily rapport, but maybe they have personas that they bring into conversations. And then when you're not aware of the persona they're bringing in, or you can't read it off of them and like reinforce it in conversation, then I don't know, you get this weird, I always got this weird, like, oh, you're not playing the same game as everyone else. And I'm like, why are we even playing a game? Can't we just talk?
Interesting.
So yeah, a lot of the interactions I've had feel very game free. It's just people talking because they want to talk.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, people coming to a social engagement because they want to socialize.
Yeah.
As opposed to whatever other
having an obligation.
Yeah. So it does feel like, to me at least, it feels like a lot of the interactions I've had have been very fulfilling, because they don't have layers of societal bullshit kind of thrown on top of them.
That's great.
And the fact that I call it societal bullshit probably says a lot about me, and the way that I socialize. But yeah, the moments that I've had where I interact with people and they're just like, haha, like kind of awkwardly giggling about learning how to talk again. I'm just like, hey, welcome to the way that I feel every time I talk to anyone ever.
Yeah.
So it almost feels like we're on an equal playing field for a while. Now they're going to get better at it again. I'll stay where I am. But
well, I mean, it's I think you're giving yourself too little credit. I think you're probably better at it than you ever have been, because you generally get better at it as an adult, or at least you probably should. That said, though, you're not giving yourself that credit. So maybe give yourself a little more credit. You are better at it, I think, than you think you are.
When I give myself credit for things, bad things happen, Bruce. Confidence is a dangerous thing, especially in social situations.
Well, I mean, I just mean as like, don't overanalyze as much as you. And by the way, this is my advice to everybody. This isn't just you; it's everyone. I'm always saying like, no, we're all in the same boat. We all kind of feel awkward and weird. Like if I've heard so many people say like, I don't want to do any fucking small talk, and I'm always like, but that's the whole. That's how you get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't just walk up to you and be like, hey, I heard you got a divorce. Tell me about it. Like, no, I have to talk to you first about the weather or your car or whatever. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Nonverbal communication.
That's normal.
Yeah.
So when everyone's
because you're communicating, if you're talking about the weather, you're not actually talking about the weather.
But that's okay.
You're reading people's tone of voice.
Yeah.
Their body language.
If they want to talk to you or if they don't.
Mm-hmm. Took me a long time to catch on to that, but yeah.
But that's all right. So it's very interesting to hear people, like you said, it's like, I'm only here to be real. I was like, that's great. I don't mind that. I actually don't. I like being straightforward. It's fun. But you're going to run into a lot of people that don't want that.
Yeah.
And obviously you've learned that. I don't need to tell you that. But this is something that I hear again from a lot of people. So I'm saying this to everybody. It's like, no. We're all there. We all feel really strange. And like Autumn and I have talked about imposter syndrome so much. And I think the older I get and the more I'm like, whatever, creating content or we have, little audiences here and there. I was like, oh man, do we deserve that? Or like, I'm thinking that constantly. I'm always like, do I deserve the $5 that somebody gave for subscription? Like, I'm always thinking about that. And I think a lot of people are. I think that we are all feeling kind of strange that maybe sometimes some people are getting paid more than they think they're worth at their work or whatever. And I'm not talking about me personally. I'm just saying like maybe you do, or maybe you think you're getting paid less. Like there's an imposter syndrome there too. I just think that's part of being an adult. I really do. I don't think we're those are unique feelings. I think that we're all there. And that always gives me a little solace is that maybe we're all kind of in the same boat. I question people that are really confident. That I question people that exude so much confidence because then I'm like, that's almost too much. Like you might be faking it, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Or some people are they're bred that way.
That's true. We've run into people, and we've run into millionaires and I don't know if I've ever interacted with a billionaire, but you and I have like run into people who are super rich and run companies and stuff like that, and it's interesting to see how they carry themselves. Because again, like they just exude confidence, but is it fake?
It might be, and it has consequences too.
Mm-hmm.
Boundless confidence can only exist if, I'm sure there's healthy ways to do it, but most of the ways I've seen with like business leaders and stuff is this cyclical reinforcement of like, I am the leader because I'm right. And that means in like reverse justification, everything I do must be right. So there's not a whole lot of like, if we are internalizing too much, they're not internalizing enough.
Correct.
Because they might, like society may elevate them and they may be celebrated with money, but there are human beings in people's lives and careers that are stunted, destroyed, or sidetracked because of their boundless confidence, which
You're right.
can be wrong a lot of the times. And those wrong calls have very real consequences that those people usually have the luxury of ignoring. So
That's right.
Yeah, I have my own baggage tied up about people like that. And maybe it's running away from that image in my head that puts me where I am.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I fancy myself somebody who studies people. I love talking to people and getting information from them, whether or not it's body language or what they're talking about, because it's fun. I enjoy that. Again, I'm an extrovert. So it's not that I use that information. It's just more of like, oh, it's interesting. So I love talking to people like that because I'm always like, boy, oh boy, there's something. They're hiding something. There's something weird here. And I always say, I think I've been saying this a lot recently on content, so I'm sorry if you've heard this. I always say when the first answer to the question, who would you have a beer with if you could? And I always say Donald Trump. The first person I always say is Donald Trump. And the reason is because I want to know why he's so fucking crazy. I want him to get drunk and be honest with me. And I will love to hear what his opinions are. And I have guesses, but I would love to hear it. And but that's just me. That's just it'd be educational. And then maybe once you start to really learn why someone does something, then you might be able to have a really productive conversation with them if they weren't so crazy.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah,
maybe.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I would run into walls over and over and over and be like, never mind. Now I get it. You know. But I would love to have an honest conversation with someone like that who everyone's questioning. What the fuck are they doing? You know, like over and over. Everyone's like, why are they doing these things? I would love to know.
I don't know. I think in Donald Trump's case, it's pretty straightforward. I think he's one of the rare people who actually does just live out loud. Everything in our society right now is made up. It's all fake. Like money's not real. Yeah. Laws aren't real. To coin a turn of phrase from an ancient mystic. So there are some people who have lived outside of those rules for so long that they recognize and never really believed that they were real in the first place. And I think he's one of those people. The magic intersection of facing zero consequences and being able to do whatever they want. And it can create an interesting human. But I do agree, crushing a couple of beers with that person would be an interesting experience.
Yeah. That, again, it's not because I'm like, I want to be like him, or I like him. Just be interesting, you know.
The unique human. I just wish that uniqueness didn't parlay into a fascination that keeps driving attention and success. That's what bugs me though. Is the human being, like something about the human condition and our obsession with assholes. That bugs me. Like I'm kind of fixated on it because there were like a slew of Netflix specials that all hit that were all obsessed with con people, basically.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's what is it, Finding Anna and the the vegan one.
Yeah.
And they're just all specifically about asshole people that steal other people's money. But the shows themselves are kind of infatuated with these people as though like that's the true fantasy we all aspire to, is to just get unlimited money and have zero consequences for it.
And not have to do anything.
Yeah. Which, all right, yeah, I guess I get it. But it's frustrating that keeps happening, but that's part of being a person, I guess, is that draw to that lifestyle and that kind of person.
Well, we always have the same, remember that we all have the same reaction to, but why is that person successful and I'm not? That's everyone's got that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, not everybody, but most people. I would say probably 99% of the world right now feels that way. There's only a couple people that can say, "Well, I'm on top," but we don't know them. And I think most people would probably be like, this doesn't make any sense. Why the fuck does the dude that ran the fire festival, why does he get to be a millionaire and out of jail or whatever he is? And I'm still sitting here in my fucking room making $30,000 a year. Like I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it sucks. We're all there with you. You know, like we all feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And, my goal as a human has always been to figure out ways to work within those systems, but have a conscience. So that's always been my, like, I could figure out ways to work within some, capitalist system that everybody hates or whatever. That said, when the time comes to be like, well, do I need to shit on this person to make more money or get promoted? If I do, then I will not do that. Then I will make the decision so that I can live with myself. That's always been my little philosophy.
Feel free to not answer this if it gets too close to anything.
No, please. Yeah.
Have you ever had moments where it was that black and white?
Absolutely. 100%,
yeah,
100%.
No shit. You could just like stamp the page and get a raise and fire people or something. Like that?
There have been specific times. I'm trying to think of like times. A couple times, like maybe I may have told you about this, but there was one years ago, and it was. Company came to me as the business leader and was like, we need to lay people off. We can lay more people off and pay you more. And I went,
they really told you this?
And I looked at them and I went, no. I went, does anybody agree to this?
Wow.
And they were like, yeah, people do that. And I was like, I'm not doing doing that. Yeah, it was like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I've had other conversations with other people. Same deal. I think I've told you this. Off content.
Yeah.
But I've had other conversations with other people where they came to me and they're like, just you and I, we can go and do this thing and we'll leave everybody else behind, but we'll make out better because of it. And I was like, no, like, what? And it blew my mind. Like, cause I just didn't expect anyone would say that sentence to me. Also, it reflects on the fact that they don't know me. You know, like,
That's a good point. Yeah.
like, why the fuck would you ever come to me with that? Like, I would say no to that. So it's still crazy to hear people say, let's fuck these other people and make out better. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's a 1-to-1. There, you didn't put anything in the middle.
Yeah. It doesn't get more direct than that, does it?
Yeah.
Because you can't even do any mental gymnastics with that and promise yourself that it's better in the long run or it's supposed to turn out this way.
They may have already done the mental gymnastics for themselves.
That's true. Yeah. I'm worth it.
Right.
Huh.
Right. Yeah, like, why? How about it's my time or whatever, who knows? But yeah, there's been times and it's crazy. It really blows my mind. Like, I can't believe that I have gotten to a spot where they're asking me those questions. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
I would never do this. And also, do you feel good about asking this question? Like, yeah, it's weird. Have you ever been in that situation where somebody's like, let's fuck this other person, it'll help me and you? Does that ever happen?
Not that I can think of. I don't recall at any point in my personal life or my career having a gettable opportunity put in front of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always just been I have to carve out opportunities, or really and I want to ask you about this later, but really my modus operandi has always just been to over deliver with everything I do.
Sure, same with me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to hope that somebody realizes that and either work my way into positions of being indispensable or be offered more opportunity because of the success I've already delivered.
Which is, by the way, a really great way to be. It's a lot of work, but it truly will bring the opportunities, because that's always the way I've been, and it seems to work. So.
It works, yeah, but it's exhausting.
Oh, it's absolutely exhausting.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah,
with because just 1 year of sort of operating in a middle management layer was.
Oh yeah, that's right, for Inside Gaming.
Yeah, and that was it, and that was too much. And I've thought a lot about this, about my failures in knowing my own limits and setting my own limits. To some degree, I was actually trying to figure out what those limits were.
Sure.
So it was educational from that perspective, but I do think it was a failure of mine to overinvest or over-deliver at that particular job in that role. So I'm curious, from your perspective, surely you were in the position constantly where if you had stayed later, done something extra for somebody else, like you must have had a million opportunities to spend more of your time or more of your workday enabling other people, or making their jobs easier, or making other people look better in the position you were in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So where did you draw the line? Like, 'cause you have to go home at some point. You have to pack it in and leave. I guess I'm just curious about when did you find where your limits were, and how did you make sure that you respected them?
Yeah.
That's a big question. I just realized.
Yeah, no, it is, because I don't know. I seem to expand those limits. I think the way that I initially discovered my limits was when I was working at G4 on Attack of the Show, because Attack of the Show was like textbook. They would work us 80 hours or whatever in a week, and then not pay us overtime, and then be like, "You're lucky to have a job." Like, it was like, and by the way, this is not like meant to go after one person there, because it wasn't. It was like, my coworkers there are in my opinion, some of the greatest producers I've ever worked with, and I love them, and I love every one of them. But the higher ups just didn't understand. They didn't get it, and they would just be like, "Well, but you love it here." I would be like, I mean, yes, I do love my work here, but also I don't want to be here all the fucking time. So I really discovered my limits there. My limits were overstepped over and over and over, and I realized, I could do this standing on my head, like, no problem. But I didn't want to. So I started looking for other jobs like probably 2 years before I left, where I was like just starting to, put little feelers out just to see what was out there, what was available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was my way of dealing with it, is I would do the work and do it well and be there all the fucking time. But I was looking around for other things. And man, Lawrence, I can't tell you how good it felt to go in with that opportunity that I had gotten by looking and be like, I'm leaving. And they'd be like, well, why? Fuck you talking about why? You know why? And the answer is they did. They knew why. Everyone was overworked. And it was great. Oh, it felt so good. And so I looked forward to that. That was like what drove me, was looking forward to that meeting. Because I couldn't wait. Like there was nothing. They had nothing. This is like I just watched The Dark Knight, and I was just thinking about this when the Joker and Batman they're in the interrogation room, and Batman's wailing on him, and Joker goes, "You have nothing." And I love that line because he has nothing, and the Joker has everything, all the leverage, and I'm the Joker in this.
Right.
I had all the leverage, and it's great to have the leverage. It is great to have that leverage. So, and you're a hard worker. Like you said, you over deliver. You're really good at what you do, just like you are. I know you are, because I've worked with you for years now. So if you go into, if you ever have a boss again, and you go in and you're like, I'm leaving, you've got all the leverage, Lawrence. They need you because they like what you do. And I say this to everybody who will listen. When you are out there and you're going to quit your job, or like you have another opportunity, whatever, and you are working hard and you're doing a good job at your job, you've got the leverage. You have it. So don't ever feel like you're attached. Don't ever feel like you're stuck in a spot if you're good at what you do. If you want to be lazy and sort of like half-ass your way through a job, well then whatever. They don't give a shit if you leave. But if you're good at it, you've got the leverage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Bruce, that's certainly something that I've only learned in the past couple of years and wish I knew way earlier.
Yeah.
I think I intellectually would take in that message, like know the value of your labor and be willing to stick up for it. But I didn't fully appreciate what it meant because I got suckered, keep getting suckered by emotions, really. Mm-hmm. I care about my work and I feel pride in it. And then that creates this weird cycle where you unintentionally emotionally invest in what you work on, and then that kind of comes back at you in a bad way.
You're right.
When it comes to walking away from it.
That is not unique to your scenario. A lot of people feel that way. And again, anytime anyone will listen about this, whenever people will ask me, I'm always like, no, you've got it. You've got the leverage. I know you. You're good at what you do. You can go in there, and if you've got another opportunity, you can use it. And another good example of this is if you have a car that works and you like it and you want to buy a new car, you can go in and be like, I want that car for $20,000. They're like, well, the car is $35,000. You're like, okay, bye. And then you can drive away in your car that you love because you've already got a car. But if they want you to buy a car, they're going to figure out a way to get you the new one. So you've got all the leverage. When you go to a car dealership, you've already got a car that works. Imagine you drive up and your car breaks down at the car lot.
Yeah.
You don't have any leverage. You're fucked. So when you're like, I want to buy the car for $20,000, like, no, you clearly have to pay $35,000 because you don't have a vehicle. That's probably another example that I can use rather than a job, because a job is a big deal. Car is a little less of a big deal. As long as you've got something that will get you around, then you don't need to worry about buying a new car. But if you want to, you've got the leverage.
Yeah. It's kind of a worker's market right now too. So.
Oh man, this is like my dream. This Great Resignation and like a bunch of people competing to hire you. It is currently an employee's market. Use it. Mm-hmm. Because this never happens, like ever. It's always an employer's market. Like you have to like play the fucking game and be like, yeah, yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
But not right now.
Thank you for your shitty scraps. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's like, you're lucky to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that sentence on multiple occasions. I was always like, damn, that sucks.
It's like the most toxic thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
At a job site. Yeah. Everyone listening right now, you guys got to go out, haggle for those raises, and then give it all to us via Patreon. So we can continue growing our gaming news empire.
I mean, well, now hold on a minute.
What?
I didn't say that.
No, Bruce, this is me arguing for the value of our work, right? We got extorted out of our viewers and listeners.
Well, just to wrap this up, I know we're at an hour, but here's my favorite part of what you're talking about. I have just discovered that if I like what I do and I'm good at what I do, people will be like, we want to support you.
Yeah.
It's the same with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll continue doing that. I don't need to be like, well, you know what? I need this $5 a month, or I need this Patreon. No, whatever. If you want to give it, great. And if you don't, that's okay. We'll find other ways to make content for you. So.
It's absolutely the most blessed position to be in.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that, despite being very flippant about it. I know that if you're listening to this now, you made it through the podcast. That means you're one of the people who likes what we do.
That's right.
That means just listening to it is good enough. So yeah, one of the things that I did want to mention, this is not a sales pitch, but as part of you were talking about like creating a mode of business inside of the tenets of capitalism.
Sure, yeah.
That are run the way you want.
Yeah.
That's very much a motivating factor for me, especially after the places we've worked at in the past and the way that especially contractors were treated.
Jeez.
With all the contractors that we work with. Wanted to make very sure that they were paid well and on time. And that's coming from the experiences that we've had, especially working in media. That's something that I'm extremely passionate about. So with all the people we work with and all the opportunities that the content we make creates, I just wanted to seed that out there that I'm certainly very invested in making sure that that's operating in a very pro-worker sort of way.
It was also transparent.
Yeah.
I always want to be transparent with what we're doing and why. So
yeah. The interesting thing is that I just ran all my tax documents and saw the number of money that went out to contractors, and I was just like, oh my God.
That's good though.
Yeah, no, it's good. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of it. But I could definitely see why any other business person could look at that and be like, I could cut that in half and have X amount of dollars to do whatever else with, to grow and expand and spin up other content and pay other contractors to make stuff for me so I have to work less. Like, yeah, I can see where it goes once you start looking at budgets and line items.
You know why people make those decisions.
Yeah, and if you're just some douche who's looking at a number that has to get smaller and you haven't met anyone and you don't care and you'll never run into them in the break room, yeah, I get it. Maybe we can be those douches someday, Bruce.
I don't want to be.
Once we get our break room.
I don't want to be. I really admire the Kind of Funny guys, and I was just speaking with them, and they were like, I don't want to reveal too much about who was saying it and what. It was all good, but they were basically saying like, no, we want to know everybody personally. We want to know every single person at our business personally, and be fully invested in who they are and what they want to do. I was like, I have never heard any business leader say that before. So I was like, that's amazing. Great job. Like, keep it up. So props to those guys, because that's how I feel. But we're in our tiny little universe over here versus Kind of Funny, who've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they got in early. They've been growing for years and stuff. So
yeah,
in 10 years we'll be there, Bruce.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
We got to have the Inside Games compound rising high above the skyline of Los Angeles. And then we can go shoot our podcast there.
That's right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
And then once we've hired 500 people, we can't possibly know them all. And
that's right.
We'll make sure. Yeah, but I'll do my best to know all their names.
You don't want to do the lunch with the CEO every day. So you just like have a lunch with a different person.
I mean, we've done those.
Yeah.
Did it make a big difference?
It was interesting for me.
Okay. All right.
I learned a bit. A little bit.
But did you come out of it feeling positive or negative?
Negative.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Negative. Big time negative. But hopefully you didn't feel negative listening to this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Do we have a name for this?
No, we really don't.
All right.
I still have I meant to produce this podcast, didn't have any time. So I don't want to reveal what the production will be, but I really want to do it next time. It's not going to be this. It won't be us talking about really deep shit.
Yeah.
It'll be about video games. But one of these days I'll get to that.
We'll call this Inside Feelings with Inside Games.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.